My name is Josh Struthers, longtime educator. I'm currently working as an assistant principal within the Jordan District. But part of my master's thesis, when we talk about getting down to the brass tacks of the data, it's really interesting stuff when it comes to cell phones. So glad all you guys are here. I actually taught high school English for quite a while as well. And it was actually high school students who helped me out by volunteering to participate in an experiment that was inspired by a study that was done in 2015 out of the University of Colorado. Francis Perlman, who's the leader of the Neuroscience Institute at the University of Pennsylvania, has said what this generation is going through right now is just a giant experiment with technology. You can see by the graph there, this is access to cell phones that has grown based in the blue is 2015, the black is 2019, the gray is 2021. This is the percentage of children that's age 8 up to age 18 who have access to a smartphone. By age 8, the latest when they did that in 2021, they have 31% of kids have a smartphone with full access to the internet. In 2017, we noted that the wireless connection penetration is actually 117%, meaning that most people have more than one connection to the internet. 91% of kids have a smartphone connection by the age of 14. 31% have one by age 8, and that was just in 2023. So we kind of see that data coming up. So as I was kind of taking a look at all this information, what I found is that according to some of the recent research, cell phones actually draw a response with the same level of attentional resources as if someone had actually called your name. So if you imagine yourself in a grocery store and you're looking for like oregano or paprika or something to spice up, this is a task that you're very focused on doing. And someone calls your name and says, "Hey, Bryce." All of a sudden, I'm not looking for paprika anymore. I'm turning and saying, "Who is this person that called my name?" Because that's more important for me to pay attention to socially and just like very deep in the the lizard brain that we all have inside. That connection to responding to our name and completing that social interaction is way more important than other attentional tasks we might be engaged in. And that type of a distraction in a learning environment is what actually hampers learning and metacognition, because all of a sudden you're pulled away from the learning task to the social task. And the social task isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if it's interrupting the learning task, that's where we're starting to take a closer look at how cell phones actually present some kind of a detriment or a benefit in a classroom, which was kind of the question that I wanted to answer. And as part of that great experiment, Andrew Sullivan says we're just beginning to kind of get our mind around the costs of what this means of having such deep penetration of cell phone access. So when we take a look at the research that I did, I wanted to determine the actual effects of cell phones that they have on cognitive fluidity and the implications that has on student success in school learning environments. And so I came up with a couple questions. I wanted to, what are the perspectives from students regarding the cell phones interaction on their learning? What do they actually believe around the cell phones and how that's actually impacted them or not? And I wanted to know what the actual reality of that cell phone interaction was on learning and long-term retention. So created an experiment. We're in a survey where I assessed the student perspectives, and then I had them do a couple of cognitive tasks, including the operation span task, cognitive two-back test, a reading span test. All of these are about short-term working memory, and then also some metacognition and attention and focus tasks. And I had 300 volunteer participants of high school juniors and seniors. So if you're a junior or a senior, raise your hand. Okay, so this, all kids who are your age, okay? When we take a look at that, we manipulated cell phone salience, and that just means how accessible was your cell phone, right? And so they were accomplishing these cognitive tasks in 3 different situations with their cell phone inaccessible. Then they had it accessible in their pocket, but on vibrate, and they would get an automated ping while they were doing the task. And then the cell phone would be on their desk with the screen visible on silent, so when they got the ping, the screen would light up and draw their attention. And here is the results of the survey. I think the finding is really interesting. 100% of students self-reported they never powered off their phone during class time. I think that's not surprising. 82% of students, again, they're self-reporting this, receiving discipline for inappropriate cell phone use from an instructor. 88% of students self-reported interacting with a cell phone during learning periods. 60% of students self-reported having missed important information in class because they were interacting with a cell phone. And this one's my favorite. 95% of students did not believe cell phone interaction during learning periods had a detrimental effect on their learning. even though they had just said, I missed important information in class. So we're seeing a bit of a disconnect in the reality versus what the perception is. So then we actually did the task, so we can see what happens. So when we have the task inaccessible, regardless of the student, whether they were a high performer, mid performer, low performer, high or low socioeconomic income, it didn't matter what their status was. They could complete the task with 94 to 100% accuracy. Average was about 97%, right? So no phone available. As soon as we put the task, have them do the device with the task, the task with the device in their pocket, average accuracy dropped to 88.3 across the board. Didn't matter how good of a student you were. When you had the, and then that was just with the exception of the Stroop color test. That one stayed pretty steady. When we had them do the task with the device on their desk, from that 88.3% benchmark that they had already dropped to, average accuracy dropped to 73.5%. So that's another 12 to 20% across all tasks from the 88% they'd already dropped to. And again, they were to show that they can complete the task with 94 to 100% accuracy at the very beginning of this experiment, which is really interesting. So what we're seeing is that student perceptions about how smartphones impact their learning and the actual data, it's not aligning. And that's not necessarily uncommon when we're looking at making any kind of changes to this kind of a nature. Cell phone accessibility and interaction produces actually an observable negative effect on attention, engagement, and retention. And I want to go into that in just a second. But student cognitive fluidity and attentional capacity was impaired approximately 12 to 30% as access to cell phones increased, right? So when we're taking a look at this, what was nice is I had the chance to actually implement some sample policies in classroom with collaboration with the students I was working with at the time. And what we did is when they came into the classroom, they actually turned their cell phone into just a calculator caddy. So they didn't have access to it during the period that they were in class. And we did that because we had a big discussion about what the data said. And they agreed with me that if they were going to be in class and they wanted to do learning tasks, then we should be all in doing those learning tasks. And so to their credit, they agreed to turn their cell phones into the front of the room, and then they would take their cell phones when they went to the next class. So these are some of the student comments that I got after doing that for a couple of weeks. Nicole said, personally, I've experienced a better academic outcome by putting my phone away. I've noticed how much more focused I become without it. Carson said, I can feel the urge to respond when my phone goes off. It takes all of my focus away from the task that I'm on. It's like trying to go to sleep at night or in classes. It's something I've never actively recognized in myself before. And this was an interesting one. Jared said, I even notice this now when I'm driving. My phone can buzz and the sensitivity to my environment goes away. It's kind of scary, is what he said. Again, the big thing here is the long-term effects. If someone's operating at 75% capacity, it's still passable. But when you do that over and over and over and over for an entire school year, and you've lost 20 to 30% of your opportunity to learn, when you could have been doing it at 94 to 100%, that's where we really start seeing the impact in classrooms. Research has demonstrated that students who daily interact with their cell phones in classroom often have lower GPAs than their peers. It's just where the data goes. And so at this time, what the data is indicating is that removing access to cell phones, and again, this is a big thing that we're starting to move towards, will almost immediately restore that full cognitive capacity for attention and learning. And if our goal is to do well and to do the very best that we can, it makes sense that we create environments that enable us to do that. And if we know that something's kind of toggling that, why not find a way to make it possible to work at that full potential? Thank you.